This is VOA Africa.
Hello, I'm Esther Githui-Ewart. It's Thursday, July 23rd. This is Africa 54. Due to the global outbreak of COVID-19, Voice of America is taking every necessary precaution to safeguard its employees. So our broadcast will look a little different today and in the near future as we, out of an abundance of caution, reduce our staffing at VOA headquarters here in Washington. We're working to help keep you informed about what's going on, and we appreciate you staying with us on Africa 54. The United States reached another grim milestone on Wednesday by recording more than 1,000 COVID-19 deaths for the second straight day. California topped its own milestone on Wednesday when it surpassed New York State with the most confirmed coronavirus infections, with over 422,000, including over 12,000 on Wednesday, a one-day record. The U.S. continues to lead the world in coronavirus deaths with more than 143,000 and in overall infections with nearly 4 million of the world's 15 million COVID-19 cases, according to Johns Hopkins University data. Meanwhile, in Africa, the spread of COVID-19 is lagging behind much of the world, but it's gaining momentum. Health authorities say the highly infectious virus is a heightened threat to countries with weak healthcare systems and especially to vulnerable populations of refugees, migrants, and forcibly displaced people. Africa passed 750,000 coronavirus infections Wednesday with almost 16,000 deaths, but over 407,000 people on the continent have recovered from the disease, according to Reuters. Epidemiologist Michael Ryan, chief of the World Health Organization's Health Emergencies Program, says there's a continued acceleration of transmission in a number of countries in sub-Saharan Africa, and the virus must be taken extremely seriously. The Kenya Private School Association is lobbying the government to help sustain their schools and teachers after authorities announced that due to COVID-19, schools cannot open until January. Kenya's Ministry of Education is supporting public schools and teachers, but many private educators are turning to other jobs to survive. Lenny Ruvaga reports from Nairobi.
26-year-old Kezia Karanja goes about preparing her beauty shop for the day. Karanja and her colleague Rebecca Atuti, both private school teachers, pooled their financial resources and began this business 2 months ago at the onset of the nationwide lockdown in Kenya. The teachers, who both teach humanities, make an average of $10 in sales each day. However, Karanja says that due to the fact that both are on indefinite unpaid leave from their jobs, finding the money to keep their shop running is quite the challenge.
We don't have enough stock so that you can sell the products. You see, when you are starting a business, you should have enough stock so that you can sell to the customers. But you're having challenges that when someone comes for a certain product, you don't have, because you don't have the money to have the stock.
In mid-March, the government suspended learning in all institutions in a bid to stem the spread of COVID-19. While public school teachers are still drawing their salaries, many private school teachers are not. Peter Ndoro, the chief executive officer at KPSA, wants the government to offer financial support to the private schools. Ndoro told VOA that about 1,400 teachers have lost their jobs as a result of the closure of schools. The rest are on unpaid leave.
During this period, what is it that will be happening? There will be no revenue coming in. But private schools closed because they wanted Kenya to be safe, heeding to the president's call that all schools should be closed. So what is it that needs to be done? These institutions need to be supported by the government.
With a workforce of around 300,000 teachers, private schools have requested a $7 million grant to pay salaries and offset mounting costs. Zach Kenuthia, the Education Chief Administrative Secretary, says the request is under consideration.
We can say that they want to be removed from a gridlock that is almost decimating them. It can be considered at higher levels and agreements can be made. There is no money. Taxes are not being collected as they used to. We are struggling to get income, but just something can be done so that we also save them.
For now, Karanja and thousands of other teachers drawn from private schools across the country are turning to alternative sources of income and vocations to support their families. Lenny Rovaga for VOA News, Nairobi.
With COVID-19 infections in South Africa topping 380,000, power cuts and tightened restrictions is making life difficult for many residents. Sisipo Sikweya reports.
The new normal for freelance beauty specialist and single mother Ketumetsi Medise has been balancing her daughter's education with making money. But now an old enemy is making lockdown even harder: blackouts.
It's kind of difficult juggling the two, especially when there's no electricity, because you have to do what you have to do.
Since restrictions began in March, South Africans who have transformed their bedrooms into offices and their kitchens into classrooms have at least enjoyed a period of stable power. That's because of reduced demand on South Africa's state-owned utility, Eskom. But in the second week of July, the ailing company implemented planned power outages for the first time since March. Eskom provides 90% of South Africa's power, but has battled to meet demand for years because of faults at its coal-fired power stations. Medise says the blackouts can last for 4 hours or the entire day, especially in poorer townships, causing disrupted schedules, unstable internet and lost revenue.
Teaching my child is a priority, and making money is also a priority, so now I have to shift that. I have to find a balance.
For those businesses in South Africa which had adapted to working at home and online, an already slow recovery now threatens to be stalled.
That was Sisipo Sikweya of Reuters reporting. A report by the UK National Cybersecurity Centre this month accused hackers with links to Russian intelligence of attacking organizations developing a vaccine for COVID-19. The report is raising diplomatic tensions, and it's opened a window into the world of pharmaceutical intelligence.
The report by the UK National Cybersecurity Centre says Russian hackers have been using spear phishing and malware to target British, Canadian and US organizations researching COVID-19 vaccines. The centre says the hacking group APT29, also known as the Dukes and Cozy Bear, attacked the companies in a bid to steal information about COVID-19 vaccine development and testing. Experts say the group is also linked to Russian intelligence services.
This group in particular has been known for doing covert, so quiet, secret espionage. And the most high-profile targets that we've seen APT29 go after, State Department, the White House, the DNC in 2015 before the 2016 breach by a different group. So this is the go-to group. This is the most specialized group for high-value intelligence.
Russia rejects the accusations.
We don't accept these allegations. We don't know who tried to hack what in the UK. It's certain that Russia has nothing to do with it.
Security experts say the hacking attempt suggests that under Vladimir Putin, Russia has not invested in the kind of science and research needed to develop its own vaccine.
Russian science is behind not just the US and UK and Europe, it's behind China, it's behind India. And Putin desperately wants to build that up. But he spent the first half of his reign developing an oligarchy, right? Developing oil and gas and not putting money into the universities or into the public school system to develop the kind of talent pool that you need to do that high-level science.
The alleged hacking attempts are consistent with how Moscow conducts its foreign policy, said Brian Whitmore, director of the Russian program at the Center for European Policy Analysis.
Everything from the doping scandals to the violations of Ukraine's sovereignty, to the use of chemical weapons on the territory of the United Kingdom. So the fact that Russia would do something like this should not surprise us at all.
Russia isn't the only nation to conduct this kind of cyber espionage. Recently, several top Republican lawmakers called on Trump to impose sanctions on China for stealing COVID-19 research and other information.
The barriers to conducting this type of activity are just very low, and the risks are relatively low. Cyber espionage around the globe is picking up. It is a method that allows countries a certain level of deniability. It also helps them avoid actions that could result in more aggressive responses from the United States and its partners.
According to the center's report, so far it appears the hacking group has not stolen valuable intelligence or interfered with research to develop the vaccine. For Tatiana Varoshko in Fairfax, Virginia, NRI's VOA News.
There's an old saying in theater that the show must go on, but when a global pandemic hits and the playbook on large gatherings is rewritten, shows like the circus cannot go on. As VOA's Arasha Basadi reports, performers in Brazil took a page from drive-in movie theaters to save their circus.
The coronavirus hurt artists at Estoril Circus in Rio de Janeiro when social distancing guidelines pulled performers from the stage and audience members from their seats.
For us, it was like losing a loved one. We lost the circus for 4 months with no hope of having it back until the vaccine was found.
Anderson de Souza Silva works as a clown. He is one of 35 performers left from a circus that employed 78 before the pandemic. That he still has a job is thanks to a change in how circus goers watch the show.
Today, thank God, we have the opportunity with the drive-in model to start the performance again. I'm very happy to be part of this new project.
By keeping the audience in their cars, circus administrator Nivaldo Jr. says the show adopted a proven winner for social distancing.
We remember the time of drive-in cinemas back in the day. All this time with no work, we were thinking of a way to relieve the stress the pandemic brought. And then the idea came, the drive-in circus.
Local councilman William Cesar says the show keeps his family grounded in the era of COVID.
To be in contact with the culture is very nice. It is amazing. My daughter is loving it. Many times she's the one honking. They won't hear if we clap, so we honk instead.
For circus staff, the show is an opportunity both for work and keeping people connected in a time of hardship.
We do it like the cinemas. Families come to the circus and watch this big show to have some joy in these rough times that we are going through during quarantine.
The Estoril Circus started in Portugal in 1898 and has been in Brazil for 30 years. This is the first time crowds of cars circled the stage instead of people. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News, Washington.
Thousands of businesses were forced to close following the strict lockdowns brought by the coronavirus pandemic, and many assumed it was the perfect time to file a business interruption insurance claim. Yet it might not be easy based on changes the insurance industry made after the 2002 SARS outbreak. Valentina Vasileva looked into the matter, and Anna Rice narrates her story.
For example, this table gets seated. This table does not. This table does not get seated. This table does get seated.
People get seated checkerboard style. Only every other table can be occupied. The bar can accommodate 4 people instead of the usual 20. Like in other restaurants in the nation's capital, this venue can operate at only 50% capacity for indoor dining. That means profits get cut in half too. That after the restaurant was fully shut from March to June.
We laid some people off. We furloughed some people that went and got unemployment compensation. Now they're back. So we've got almost everybody back.
Owner of the restaurant Medium Rare, Mark Boucher, says the pandemic cost him hundreds of thousands of dollars. To try and compensate, Boucher got in touch with his insurance company, hoping the $25,000 he paid in insurance would pay off.
We, like many responsible business owners, filed a claim with our insurance company saying that our business has been interrupted due to circumstances beyond our control, and we're going to seek to the insurance company for reimbursement of lost sales and profits under the wording of our policy. It didn't take very long to get a letter back saying we're denying your claim. A pandemic or a virus is not a covered cause of loss.
Insurance companies changed their policies after the SARS outbreak that hit the world in 2002-2003, when insurance companies had to pay millions of dollars in compensation. Some added straightforward wording saying they're not covering losses because of a pandemic or virus outbreak. Others found more intricate wording, but to the same effect. Yet, independent experts say it all depends on how to interpret the contract.
That's the thing. If they're requiring physical loss only, then you're kind of stuck.
but a good business interruption policy shouldn't have a physical loss requirement. Some of them, they don't have a direct physical loss requirement, but they're still using it anyway. They're adding it in as if it was there, and it's not.
However, insurance companies explained that the new policies were not adopted to get out of paying. They're simply trying to preserve the insurance industry. The U.S. has never seen such a massive disaster. The largest one before the pandemic was Hurricane Katrina that cost insurance companies $54 billion. The COVID-19 pandemic, according to the American Property Casualty Insurance Association, has led to monthly losses between about $250 and $430 billion monthly. This is more than half of all the money insurance companies have for covering future losses.
If a pandemic is specifically mentioned in the insurance contract, the number of insurance claims will be so large, it will surpass the amount these companies can pay.
Insurers say in a case like today's, it is the government that should support small businesses. Small business owners, on the contrary, are urging the government to change laws, making it impossible for insurance companies to evade paying in extraordinary circumstances like the current pandemic. For Valentina Vasilyeva in Washington, Anna Rice, VOA News.
We're excited to hear what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the discussion on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our broadcast live on Facebook. Please watch and share our show with your friends. Also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Still to come, a group of mayors of American cities protests against deployment of federal forces to their cities. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Linor Moudou, your VOA health correspondent.
Let us be perfectly clear. All countries.
During the COVID-19 pandemic, the World Health Organization says there is no information or evidence suggesting that the coronavirus can be transmitted by mosquitoes.
There are 2 published studies.
It is a respiratory virus which spreads primarily through droplets, generated when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or through droplets of saliva or discharge from the nose.
This happens during pandemics in the past.
For more information on COVID-19, visit who.int or contact your local or national health authority.
Welcome back to Africa 54. In Ivory Coast, a former foreign minister has announced his candidacy for the October presidential election. Marcel Amon-Tanoh, once a partner of President Alassane Ouattara, said Wednesday that he wants to be a unifier of all Ivorians. He served as President Ouattara's foreign minister from 2016 until March when he resigned. Sources close to Amon-Tanoh say he plans to form his own political party in coming days. His announcement comes as the ruling RHDP party is scrambling to find a candidate following the sudden death of Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly and the resignation of Vice President Daniel Kablan Duncan this month. New Lesotho Prime Minister Moeketsi Majoro is under fire. The Lesotho Times is reporting that 2 principal secretaries are refusing to honor Majoro's directives to vacate their offices so that newly appointed permanent secretaries can take over. Now supporters of former Prime Minister Thomas Thabane are threatening to expose what they call Majoro's dirty secrets if he does not give in to their demands to drop murder charges against Thabane. China is threatening to retaliate after the U.S. ordered the closure of its consulate in Houston, Texas, accusing Beijing of massive illegal spying and the theft of American intellectual property. VOA's diplomatic correspondent Cindy Sen reports on a dramatic escalation of tensions between the two countries.
The Chinese consulate in Houston was given 72 hours to shut down. The U.S. order came as Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was visiting Denmark, where he was asked what triggered the move.
We actually talked about this. It's not just American intellectual property but stolen. It's been European intellectual property too, costing hundreds of thousands of jobs, good jobs for hardworking people all across Europe and America, stolen by the Chinese Communist Party.
Pompeo said the theft has been going on for a long time and that China will be held accountable.
President Trump has said enough. We're not going to allow this to continue to happen.
China responded swiftly.
China strongly condemns it and urges the U.S. side to withdraw the wrong decision. Otherwise, China will definitely take a necessary and legitimate response.
Some experts say they do not expect a rupture in diplomatic relations, but they do expect China to respond in kind.
I believe the U.S. consulate in Wuhan has been instructed to close. It will be interesting to see how much time the Chinese give the Americans. We apparently only gave Beijing about 72 hours.
As word of the closure spread, video reports showed fires inside the Houston consulate, an apparent attempt by employees to quickly destroy documents. Republican Senator Marco Rubio said the Houston closure is necessary, calling the facility a central node of China's vast network of spies in the U.S. Democratic Senator Bob Menendez said he wants to better understand the tactical considerations and strategy for the Trump administration's decision. While President Trump has often praised Chinese President Xi Jinping, tensions between the two countries have increased over the COVID-19 pandemic and China's security crackdown on protest in Hong Kong. Cindy Sain, VOA News.
A group of 15 U.S. major city mayors are calling on the federal government to immediately withdraw federal forces and agree to no further unilateral deployments in U.S. cities in a letter Tuesday to Attorney General William Barr and Acting Department of Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf. The mayors say the federal government deciding on its own to send forces into American cities is unprecedented and violates fundamental constitutional protections.
Black Lives Matter protests have continued in the U.S. since the death of George Floyd while in police custody in May. Most are peaceful, yet some are marked by looting and vandalism. President Donald Trump is cracking down with an aggressive federal policing campaign called Operation Legend.
This bloodshed must end. This bloodshed will end. Today I'm announcing a surge of federal law enforcement into American communities plagued by violent crime.
Trump is sending hundreds of federal agents to Chicago, Albuquerque, and other cities that he says need help to stop crime. While state officials have asked for the federal government's help to quell unrest in the past, this week, mayors of 15 cities, including Chicago, condemned what they called unilateral deployments by the administration.
Nameless agents riding around in vans, pulling people off the street, depriving them of their constitutional rights. That is not what a democracy looks like. And we are not going to have that in the city of Chicago.
Trump has sent federal agents to cities including Portland and Seattle, but they have not calmed tensions.
Going in and arresting a bunch of people and sending in the feds may give you a moment's peace, but it's not going to give you long-lasting peace.
Trump's federal policing effort is being challenged in court, but even if he loses, there may already be a political advantage.
The radical left-wing mob's agenda? Take over our cities, defund the police, pressure more towns to follow, and Joe Biden stands with them.
Biden has said he opposes defunding but does favor conditioning federal aid to police departments. Trump's campaign is pushing the narrative that the country is in chaos and needs a law and order candidate to win in November.
People running for office will often use conflict, things like ethnic conflicts or inter-ethnic riots, as a way to stir up support for their side. And already we've seen something like that, where the Trump campaign is using footage from protests in places like Portland in their campaign advertisements.
Despite Trump rhetoric on the rise in violent crime across the country, FBI data show that many major cities have less crime than they did decades ago. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News.
In our business report, while many small businesses are continuing to struggle amid the COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, a few are finding ways to keep going and even thrive. VOA's Gabrielle Weiss profiles a hair salon owner in Garrett Park, Maryland, who has adapted to the changes.
So I'm Maggie Sprague. My salon is Salon Bond, and I've been in business since 2006. Before the pandemic, I had a booming business. I work in my home, and I started work at 6:30 in the morning and worked until about 2:30 when I would pick my kids up from school. I have a really, really nice base of ladies that come in here. And I don't know that it'll be the same again ever, because when they come in, normally I have a few people in at once, and there is sort of this groove in the room, and the conversations start, and you sort of feel like you're with your girlfriends having cocktails, only there's no cocktails involved. And I miss the salon terribly. I miss my clients. That's it. So I came up with this idea to do custom color kits at a reduced cost and simple instructions where I could FaceTime my clients or Zoom with them at home and walk them through it. So it was a lot less scary than if you were to go buy a box from the grocery store, not knowing what you're putting on your head, and then guessing how you put it on. Once you get that stirred, you can start at the back of your head. So you want to start sort of at the nape of your neck, painting your hairline completely. Because I have such a large client base to begin with, I have more of an audience of people to sell my kits to.
And should I go to the front all the way? Should I do the front?
All the way to the front. And that's the part that's really important. So make sure you really get it on.
My kids don't even recognize me. They have no idea who I am. They're like, "Who are you, lady with black hair at the roots?" I'm like, "It's your mom."
Maybe there is a future in this, and who knows how long this pandemic is going to go on. I am eager to get back to my normal way of working. However, I see this as a new way of doing things. I would love to be able to provide kits for people after the pandemic, and not just my clients. I would be happy to provide them for anybody. It may turn into another type of business for me, something that I do on the side that helps people when they can't get into the salon. Everybody cares about their appearance. Everybody wants to look good. No one wants to look bad. For now, this will do the trick.
And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thank you for watching.